Well, hello everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Mustard Seed Leadership Podcast. We are on week number 3 of a series called How Do We Grow Our Leadership Capacity, which for me is a super important one and certainly a journey that I'm on, asking God to help me grow and expand. Let me remind you once again what I mean by leadership capacity. Well, your leadership capacity is simply how much you can handle, basically how much responsibility you can shoulder, how many people you can lead, how many projects you can manage, how much influence you can wield. Now, the good news is we can grow. By learning the skills of leadership, we can develop the ability to handle more and carry more. And the big idea is that leaders of great influence have learned to stretch their capacity as much as possible. Now, why is it so important? What's the big deal? Why is it so important that we enlarge our leadership capacity as much as possible? Well, the example I have for you today goes all the way back to Genesis 1. When God created us in Genesis 1:28, God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it, rule over the fish in the sea and birds in the sky and over every living creature that moves along the ground." In other words, God's original intent was that we would be growing, multiplying, and exercising dominion. Now, the limiting factor there is your capacity. Now, God wants to enlarge us and grow us so that we can carry more of that influence and dominion. Growing your leadership capacity is a big thing. So, what are the warning bells that we have to be aware of? How do you know when you've reached your leadership capacity? Well, a couple of things. You start feeling overwhelmed, and that means you're hitting the edge. It's time to expand. Otherwise, you're going to end up in burnout, frustration, or you're going to start dropping balls. In other words, you've got too many things in the air that you're trying to keep happening, and eventually you start dropping some of those and letting people down. Now, the example this week in terms of what it means to be reaching your capacity comes from the story of Martha. Remember, Jesus went to see his friend Lazarus, and Mary and Martha were there. And this was what Martha said in Luke chapter 10, verses 40 to 42. It says, "But Martha was distracted by all the preparations." There we go. She was at her limit, distracted by doing this, doing that, doing the next thing that had to be made. She came and said to Jesus, "Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me." "Martha, Martha," the Lord answered, "you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken from her." So you can see from Martha's expression that she was in that state of being overwhelmed. She was distracted from what was truly important. In other words, when you have stretched your capacity and you're outside your capacity zone, you begin to get your priorities wrong. She doubted God's love. "Don't you care?" She began to blame others. She became short and angry. "Tell my sister to help me." These are the signs that you have reached your capacity limit, and either you need to reduce what you're doing, or you've got to trust God to be able to enlarge that capacity so that you can handle more. Now, remember what we spoke about last week as well, that little quote about, are you working on your business or church or organization, or are you working in? What's the difference between working in and working on? You see, big capacity leaders don't work in their business or organization, they work on it. Now, last week we looked at a couple of things about being too involved in every decision, involved in too many hands-on things. I want to take a moment now to look at what does it mean to work on. If you're working on your church or on your organizational business, these 3 things are going to take up your best time. Number 1, vision crafting through content generation. In other words, you are focusing on the vision of the organization and making sure that you're working in streamline towards that common goal. You are team building through mentoring. In other words, your focus is not do, but rather shape and mold key people in the organization. And then you are culture setting through example. In other words, you're looking for opportunities to set a culture, to celebrate a culture, because that's shaping the organization for the future. These are the types of jobs that big capacity leaders give their best time to. So ask yourselves, are you too involved, or are you working on your business or church organization? So we've been looking at 6 ways to stretch your capacity. Number 1, we've looked at focusing on as few things as possible. Number 2, doing as little as possible. And the one I want to focus on today, number 3, is meet with as few people as possible. What do I mean by that? Now, Great leaders should be approachable. Great leaders should be available, but they do guard their time carefully and don't give equal amount of time to everybody. They invest their best time in those who will produce the most fruit. There it is right there. This is a big capacity step up when you learn that your time is your best resource and how you invest your time is going to determine your fruitfulness. Big capacity leaders invest their best time in those who produce the most fruit. Here's the revelation moment. Look at Jesus. Mark 5:37. He did not let anyone follow him except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. Mark 9 verse 2. After 6 days, Jesus took Peter, James, and John with him and led them up a high mountain where they were all alone. There he was transfigured before them. Mark 14 verse 33. He took Peter, James, and John along with him, and he began to be deeply distressed and troubled. Do you see the pattern? He had the 12 that he was training. He had the crowd that he ministered to, but he had the 3 that he was deeply investing himself into. He shared the best opportunities with them. He took them on special trips. He shared his deepest personal struggles with them. Now, that's the secret of big capacity leaders. Not equal time for everyone, focused times on those who get the most results and you want to develop the most. I've loved watching John Maxwell. As he's got older, he's looking to train his successor to take over the John Maxwell enterprise. And he's got the man that he's going to hand over, and they travel everywhere together. They every day are talking to each other. He's taking him to every opportunity. He is investing deeply in one, because that one will produce great fruit. So let me wrap it up with just 2 points of challenge today. Number 1, identify the 1, 2, or 3 who hold the most potential. This is crucial. Now for me, that would mean the elders around me in the church that I'm leading. It's out of those elders that I have to choose the 2 or 3 and invest deeply, because they will produce the greatest fruitfulness and potential. And then number 2, begin to intentionally take them into your close circle. In other words, you've got to look for the opportunities. For me, that means inviting them to travel with me, inviting them into key meetings. That means sitting, talking, shaping vision, dreams for the future. Be intentional. Big capacity leaders don't share their time equally. They focus their time on the right key people. So, big capacity leaders multiply themselves through others. Don't wait. Start doing it and let your capacity grow. Hope that's helpful. Can't wait to see you again next week. God bless everyone. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. Remember, if you'd like the notes that come along with this episode or any one of our past episodes, you can visit outlookchurch.co.za/mustard seed leadership, where you can see all our past episodes, all the resources and notes that go along with this. Until next time, keep growing.